All right. Hey guys, thanks for joining us again this week. You're tuning into Skain's Domain with Wynton Marsalis, and I'm Adam Meeks, your technical host for the evening. Tonight we're joined by members of the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, including Chris Crenshaw, Kenny Rampton, Elliot Mason, Camille Thurman, Ted Nash, Paul Nedzella, Walter Blanding, Dan Nimmer, and Carlos Enriquez. If you have a question you'd like to ask, we will have you use the raise hand feature. To do this, click participants on the bottom of your Zoom window, and then in the participants tab, press the raise hand button. Please also just make sure that your full name appears as your username so we can call on you when it's your turn. And before we do that, I'd like to hand the mic over to Mr. Wynton Marsalis to kick things off. Go ahead, Wynton.
All right, thank you very much, Adam. Welcome everybody back again this week for Skain's Domain, where we discuss issues significant and trivial. And the more trivial they are, the more impassioned we are about it. Today I have the blessing of having the members of the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. I miss them so much. And we spent so many years playing each other's music on bandstands. For our younger members, some started as students. For our older members, we've been here. And I also want to hear from them. We were talking and laughing and joking before we open the lines up. So we're going to just open to a few questions and we're going to get into just a free conversation. Feel free to have questions for any of us and we'd love to answer it. I'm going to start with our senior member, Mr. Ted Nash, because when you get to a certain age, everybody thinks you know something. They always asking you for advice. So I want him to tell us how COVID-19 has affected him and what advice does he have for all of us for preparing for life post-COVID-19, if there's ever a post-COVID.
You're just calling on me because I'm old because you're afraid I'm going to die before this call is over. I get through this fast. Oh my God.
That's a good one.
This is, it's really more about like moving forward. I mean, I feel like this is a tough time. I mean, whenever we have a time of extreme challenge or crisis, there's always an opportunity for growth. There's always an opportunity. We need to prepare for this and we need to be practical, but we also need to deal with it psychologically and emotionally. And I know people are struggling right now. They're struggling with how to find inspiration. They're looking for ways to continue to be creative and active. And I think that moving forward is going to be about adapting. We have to be intelligent and creative. We have to really be intelligent and creative about how we move forward past all of this. It's going to be tough. I know politics is going to need to be less partisan, and that is absolutely for sure. We need to find a way to be less partisan with our politics. Our country and our world needs to take better care of its citizens with more comprehensive health programs, more job protection. I think education, when I think about everything, education is absolutely the priority. We have to start educating and exposing kids when they're young to what is it? What's the world like? I mean, you can sometimes understand how kids grow up in a vacuum and they don't know what's happening out here. And I think we need to vet our teachers. We need to make education and teaching like being a doctor or a lawyer. You have to study for a long time and be really good at it, and you get paid well for it. I think education is the key. I think absolutely an overhaul of our police system is necessary. But the United States needs to figure out a way to embrace cultures from all over the world. I mean, this is absolutely important. It's hard to even see it sometimes, but I really do think it's an opportunity. It's always an opportunity when we're in this kind of crisis, and it's a shame to overlook it at this point. I know if you look at post 9/11, I know there's probably some people out there that don't really remember that as well, but the political polarization that began in the 1990s continued to get worse after that, and the economic inequality that began in the 1980s also continued to get worse through that. Nobody asked us to rally to become more aware, more engaged. I mean, our civic equity was completely squandered at that time. We had an opportunity. Flag sales went through the roof because our leaders basically said, go out, be consumers, spend money, go out and spend money. I mean, anyone could buy a flag, but clearly 9/11 did not really change the world. It accelerated our pre-existing trends. And I think that we're in that kind of position now that we have to recognize that that's also a possibility and we have to fight against that. I mean, I think what we needed after 9/11 was better leadership, and clearly now we're struggling in that area. So I just think that we do have an opportunity, but we need to work hard. And I mean.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a question, because it's easy. It's easy to call for all of what we need. And I'm going to liken it to the bandstand. You're a person who's very good at adapting music from different cultures. You're able to understand what kind of the feeling or the essence of what something is. And you also, when we're rehearsing your music, you're very good at not trying to force people to do something that they don't necessarily want to do, but still get the sound that you want. So without going too long, just on you, I want you to touch on something tangible about what makes you able to be successful listening to other cultures' music and get in the orbit of their sound. And then how are you able to let people who may have a different concept from you play their concept and still find space under your umbrella for what they're doing?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I feel sometimes I'm a little too easy on people when I rehearse. I know sometimes when I rehearse, you jump in and say, hey man, we got to get that together more, or whatever. I know I'm like that. I'm very
That's
like
Carlos. That's Carlos or Walter.
I mean,
Walter's always turning it around saying, do y'all hear how this sounds?
Oh, I mean, sometimes I wish I were a little more clear about what I want. And sometimes I just think that I take for granted that everybody's going to basically understand what I want. I don't have to force it down their throats. And I think that's a lot of that's my upbringing. It's like when Andre Guest told me to embrace your mythology, right? Embrace who you are. I think about my parents and how laid back they were. And I think that's had a huge impact on me. So even though I do like to explore all these different cultures, I'm not trying to. I remember when we did that whole program with the flamenco music, I think it was, and we were talking about Big 12.
That's right.
Man, you took that music and you studied it so hard intellectually. You were saying, we got to rehearse this stuff, we got to get this feel together. And I had to write a piece for that. And I just kind of intuitively wrote this piece of music. It sounded sort of flamenco-ish, and brought it in and we played it. But I didn't have that kind of research that you had. And I feel like there's a place for really understanding deeply the cultures that you're trying to bring into your music and not disrespect it. Carlos definitely can talk about that, because we do so much Latin and jazz mix kind of stuff like that. And it's challenging sometimes to feel like you know enough about this to make people play it. But I'm kind of more laid back. So I don't know, maybe that's something I need to work on, when I'm
Well, I don't know. Your piece sounded a lot better than mine. Me and Carlos, that's just the truth. Carlos and I were looking at a book. We were on a plane. You remember this, Carlos? We were looking at a flamenco book. And we just studied it. Carlos said, who wrote this book? He said, you see, all the information was wrong. So I don't know about that.
Oh my God, yeah.
So I wanna go in another. I'm gonna just go over to Chris, and I wanna talk to. Because we're all here, we have so many experiences we can share with people. I want to see if Chris can remember an unforgettable moment that we've had on the bandstand that can be shared on air.
That was it. Man, that's not fun.
Man.
Open it up.
But I could think of two instances actually. One of them was when Bobby Hutcherson played In Your Own Sweet Way.
That's right. He made us cry. Yeah. We all had tears in our eyes.
Bro, I'm talking about, not to make a pun, but he was playing, he had such a vibe when he played, man. He played so much vibe. I mean, it was almost like you knew it was his last time.
Last time.
And
y'all remember that?
That was NEA, right? Wasn't that the NEA?
It was the NEA Jazz Masters.
Man,
right.
And he came out
everyone
there,
was crying.
Everyone was crying. I wanted to take a standing ovation after he did his solo, man. It was that unbelievable, bro. I started to do it, but that's one of those moments that you're on the bandstand. It's like, man, you just never forget that. And then another moment that I could think of, I could do it in 2 words: Eartha Kitt.
Oh yeah. You remember that?
Man.
Sugar Rob in here.
Yeah, exactly. It was 2007. It was a concert where we had Paul Anka, Fantasia, and Eartha Kitt.
Oh, man.
And it was a sound check. It wasn't necessarily the gig, it was the sound check.
Chris, you remember the stretching she was doing?
That's what I'm about to get into. She was stretching, she was purring, she was doing her thing, getting ready, and Man, Sugar Rod was smiling like a Cheshire cat, bro. He wiped the smile off his face, man. I'm talking.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
And then she started singing Santa Baby, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Chris, you remember when Bobby was at the softball game in San Francisco?
Yeah, that's the one.
Bobby Hutchinson came with his oxygen tank because his son was playing with the SF Jazz crew, and he stood in the bleachers and just hung with us.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, that was fun, man. Skain came up, hit a home run, and left.
He hit a home run and left.
Hey, man, what about, do y'all remember that Misty did Diane Reeves put on us?
Ooh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about
that was one Friday night. Whew.
Yep.
Never forget that.
That's right. It was Friday night,
It was
too.
a Friday night, too. Her and Peter Martin were on stage, and they did Misty, and it was like it was never going to end, but you didn't want to end because it got into that moment where it was just spontaneity on top of spontaneity.
It was spiritual, man, right there.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Show you right.
Well, I wanna ask Elliot something. Your wife Sophia is a great singer, and your son Maxim, he's gonna be in the trumpet section one day, like his uncle and his grandfather.
Before he's a bass player.
Bass trumpet.
No bass.
He's gonna play bass and make some money. Come on.
Actually, he's on drums right now. He's digging drums.
That's close enough.
Yeah. I saw that
drums
video.
is right next to trumpet. So Elliot, how you staying motivated and inspired when there's no gigs around, and also when we look into the future, we don't see a gig anywhere.
That's the tough thing right there. But I think in general, we're all trying to do what we love in any capacity possible. And as a musician, that human reaction that we have on stage and the intimacy and the feeling, I mean, you can't match that. So I've been trying to make like little adjustments with the things that I can kind of control to try and make up with that huge loss of that actual live performance. And I'm definitely missing, you guys right now on stage and being on stage. Absolutely. But I'm listening to a lot of music. I mean, I always kind of listen to music, but now I'm like getting deeper, maybe more into like emotional listening. And you were talking about, Wynton was talking about Monk last week and how you were kind of revisiting some of that stuff. And that's kind of like, there's always music like that on in my house right now. And speaking of Maxim, like he's calling stuff out, like he's on a Brazilian kick right now. He wants me to put that on. He's like dancing all around the house the whole time. So he actually controls, he has the remote. He's controlling the music all the time.
How old is he now? How old is Maxim?
He's 2.5. He's
That's
2.5 right now.
He got perfect pitch?
Actually, he's got some crazy ears. I don't even know what's going on there. Like
thanks to Daddy.
He like his dad.
Some crazy.
Daddy got it.
I mean, if we have time, I'll tell you a little bit of story about him as well at the end there. But I mean, also I feel like as musicians, sometimes that live performance is our creative outlet, and so I'm making sure that I'm trying to be creative in my practice as well, and that's keeping me. I'm enjoying all these live stream concerts. I know like everyone and their uncle is doing one, but at the same time, it's kind of fun to, I'm seeing people that maybe I wouldn't get to see. And on the other end of it, as being like a performer is kind of giving me something to work towards and these little goals that kind of help everything else fall in line, like more of a purpose within my practice. Virtual collaborations have been crazy as well, which I think is wonderful. I'm like getting reached out and also reaching out to people maybe I've never played with before, but, and just having some kind of reaction. I mean, some kind of connection and play with some people that I didn't even think I'd even get to play with. So that's been a lot of the stuff that's keeping me inspired. I mean, I also think there's like, as a jazz musician, staying motivated and inspired when you only have 3 gigs in your book is something that is actually all too familiar to us.
Right.
Definitely at some point we've been there, we can relate. Right. So there's a sense of that. And I mean, obviously there's,
so for real, man.
I'm not trying to make, light of it. I mean, obviously there's like an unsettling uncertainty or whatever hanging over everything, but I think you can either go 2 ways. You can curl up into a ball and you can kind of wait for things to end, or you can like double down on like what you do and become stronger on the other end of it. And that's something that I feel like has really motivated me is just really trying to just almost double down on practicing and listening and everything. So when we do get to have our concerts, that I'm feeling like I'm more positive and I'm in a better place than I was beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, we're gonna be back to being the two who play on the fast tunes all the time.
Well, yeah, there's that. I'm just quickly going to tell you about that Maxim story, right? So we were recording Chris's tune, and I was in this room right now. And we have the camera set up. I've got my shirt on. I'm halfway through the tune. Everything's, I feel like it's a good take. And that door opens, and suddenly he comes running in. And, like for the first few seconds, I'm thinking I can still salvage this. This is pretty cute. I'll pick him up on my lap and everything, and we'll still be able to use this take. And of course, he's just come out of the bath. He's got like zero clothes on whatsoever. So it's like now I'm looking there going like. Nah, this is unsalvageable. I got to do another take right now. So, when you're looking at those, things that we're doing, the big band, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. Right. I hear Dan like co-signing me right now. But, when you've got kids and you're trying to record in a room and it's like, it's a challenge, but it's all you can do is just enjoy it,
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead with the Nimsky. Dan, what are some of the things that you miss the most about being able to perform live? Because you a diehard swinger.
Thanks, Wynton. Man, I miss everyone's sound, man. Like the vibration of their sound, being able to hear them in a room, being able to hear the sound bounce off the walls,
right,
of a concert hall, of a stage. That's for real. No matter how good your Wi-Fi is, how good your headphones are, you're not going to be able to replace that live experience. That's right. I mean, I'm serious, man. Like we have all this we have all this technology, but we got the live experience is the.
So you're gonna be less hard on us in rehearsals?
That's
when we
right.
get back to rehearsal, you're gonna be more like, okay, man, that was good.
Oh man.
When are you gonna do your first big band arrangement?
Yeah, I did it already. I did it. Quarantine Blues.
That was good.
Yeah. Oh, man, I miss everyone's sound. I miss being able to interact with the musicians. Our music requires all kinds of interaction, decision making. We can't really do that now. So I miss all that kind of stuff.
Well, what do you think the first gigs are gonna be like after this quarantine is over? Like if you imagine you can play in a trio, or you can play alone, you can play a duo. So you're gonna be out there as soon as it's an opportunity. Yeah. But what are you envisioning?
Well, I mean, I think for the audiences, it's going to be for everyone. It's going to be great, but for the audiences, it's going to be fresh and something new. But for us as musicians, I think that feeling of it being like fresh and new, of course, the first few times is going to wear off, and it's just going to be reassuring that this is what we've trained our whole lives to be doing. This is what we're meant to be. This is our lifestyle. Yeah, I think they're going to be great gigs.
But So are you putting on concerts for your kids in there?
Yeah, every day.
I want to see what they're talking about. Y'all playing together? What are y'all doing?
Yeah, we got a few tunes that we're doing. And,
Metal tune. Go on.
Yeah, we played. Yeah, we did with Hamilton de Hollanda. We just did. Carlos and I did a tune.
I heard it, man. It sounds great. We got to put that up. That's fantastic.
But
what's the name of that tune? What's the name of the tune?
O Faro que nos guía.
O Faro que nos guía. Guiding light.
Our guiding light.
Our guiding light.
So Carlos, you're recording a lot from home. Y'all just did the trio song, and I butchered one of your songs last week. But yesterday I saw a beautiful picture of you with your three sons, age 15, 13, and 6. And y'all all had on y'all cute Father's Day shirts. How has being home so much impacted your life with your kids? Because I know they've never seen you this much.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, during the summers, we're usually on the road working. And, it's tough on me because, being a musician that I am, I want to play, I miss the stage. I miss hanging out. I miss that part, that's in me. But the one thing that I could tell you about this whole pandemic and the blessing on it is I actually get to see my kids grow, and I get to see them do things that I don't remember, like these guys, my big boy Kiko, he's 15, he's a man already, man.
He's big too.
Man, and I'm thinking, man, how am I gonna handle him? And then Alex is 13, he's 6'1", and
Right.
little Joshy, you know, he's growing up. It's been interesting, and but it's been a blessing, Skain. You know, it's always a pleasure to see my kids, you know, just see them grow. They've been asking questions, and we've been hanging. We've been throwing football outside. I've been so motivated during this time that, you know, my third floor, I just demolished the hell out of my bathroom. So they've been helping me putting it together and stuff like that.
Oh, you going down on, man?
You know, you
got to call Murphy.
We're figuring things out, and it's been cool. It's been cool. It's been a good thing, you know. I've been very happy to see these kids grow, and you know, they all love. You know, it's a blessing.
Oh yeah, they made out of gold, man. The Lord put a blessing on you.
Amen. You know,
they're golden.
I'm a blessed daddy to have them.
You know, you know, we all love when they come on the gigs too.
Yeah.
I ruined my back for a whole summer trying to pick Kiko up when he was 13.
The bouncing house we got into. Woo! Bouncing house, we were jumping up and down.
Oh man, you remember that?
We're aching the next day.
So you know, look, I'm gonna go over to Camille. Camille, you have a degree in geological and environmental science, and you also have a community consciousness. And you know, this is a time that cries out for community and protest and that type of consciousness. But there's not really a lot of that in jazz today. We were actually looking for this season to be that. So we were looking around for who's really talking about it. And even if they're negative against us, go get them and just put them up here. And we didn't find a lot of people. So in this time, how can we as musicians continue the legacy of Max Roach and Abbey Lincoln and Nina Simone and Dave Brubeck and all the musicians who were really about American social justice and use our platform to connect the community and battling social injustice? And do you even think we should do that?
Well, I mean, jazz in itself is based off of speaking out, fighting for and advocating for what's right. Nina Simone had a great quote that she said that it's the artist's duty to create music that reflects the times, that reflects the community. And as musicians, we are part of the community. Our canvas is what we see around us, and we're able to feel and be able to use the music as a medium to connect those thoughts and those feelings of what's happening in our world that we see with the people that we commune with every day. So even if it's just simply writing a song, or even if it's simply starting a conversation, or even if it's simply getting together with another artist in a different medium, whether it's through visual art or dance, it's always great for us to use our music to be that voice and speak out. I know with the things that was happening the last couple of weeks, for me, I didn't even have the words. And I found myself back at my instrument, and it started flowing for me because it was like, okay, now I could hear what I'm feeling and try to communicate that. And I was able to put something together and start a conversation with people that I normally don't even really get to talk to. And I think we can, as musicians, use our music to start those conversations.
That's beautiful. That's kind of like what Elliot was saying, just with people. But you know, I know from talking with you, kind of the depth of your intelligence and also the depth of your engagement. And it's in your singing too. It's in your composition. It's in your singing. I'm saying it's just the absolute truth. Okay, I see you smiling, but I mean, because if people don't really know you, they don't understand. You know, they're not around you. They don't get a feeling for the depth of your level of engagement with things. So do you feel hopeful in this time? Or do you feel depressed? Or what is your feeling?
I feel hopeful because as long as there's a will to fight and to keep pushing forward, it's going to get done. And I think as musicians, we live each day with the gift of being able to create. And that's a sign of life. That's a sign of hope. So we have to keep pushing and striving to do everything in our power to keep that light going.
Amen.
So I'm going to go over to Paul because he's also somebody who has a deep social consciousness and a political awareness, and is always has a point of view. But I'm going to take him out of that. No, but you do. You know, I always tell people, we talk about these issues all the time. Ted and I have been talking about this stuff for years in a very raw and basic way, because that's how we have to come to each other with that type of respect. But I'm going to take you into another thing. You know, I mean, Camille has expressed it for us. We don't need to reiterate what she said. But I want to know what do you think about the role of technology in the music, and it's changed recently, whether you know how to turn the phone on or not. I mean, I know how to get on my phone. I never knew how to do it. And how has it helped or hurt education and other ways that you have to communicate a feeling to someone, specifically as the technology helped or hurt in this isolated period?
I mean, it's you know, it's a tool, and I think it's like we're able to do this now, which is great. It's just great to be able to hear everybody's like point of view, hear everybody play from time to time, you know. But you know, I think I'm a little bit in the minority sometimes in just the way I feel about some of the advancements, you know, social media, and sometimes even what we're doing, where that tool can be used for good, but sometimes not, without the consciousness of what we're using it for, right? I mean, being able to have these conversations, be able to do the projects we're doing, I think is great. And we're chasing that live feeling that we miss, right? I mean, I love playing with you all so much that it's like, you know, just to get that taste of it is a little bit, but we're always just chasing that feeling. So I'm hoping at the end of it, what we really do is just like running out the gate to get to the real thing again. The only thing I feel like is sometimes we're like, you know, we take advantage of what we can do with technology without actually thinking of why we are doing it. And that same thing goes with playing, of like, you know, why make choices when you're playing of why are you doing this? Sure, you can play a lot of notes, or sure, you can do this, but what is the purpose of doing it? We can fill all the stuff on the air, we can put something out, but I think it's all just this, we're all just approximating like the real thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as when we can actually play together, we don't let the simulation ever try to overshadow the real thing. I'm never going to get that same feeling as I get just sitting in the same room with y'all. That sound, you know, like Dan was saying, it's just, you can't even come close. It doesn't matter how good the equipment is, records, whatever, you know.
So I want to pick up on what you're saying, and I want to go to, for me, one of the great joys is to look at you over these years, look at Walter. Like, you know, because you're much younger than us, so when you would, and Walter's a lot younger than me, so just you sit next to Walter. So early on, I would always love kind of just how when Walter played, because you're much closer to his sound than we are in the trumpet section, and just to kind of feel, you know, you can't fake like something is hitting you. It's just something in music. And I'm gonna go with what Camille was talking about, how she said the emotion is so deep she couldn't say she could reach for a horn. And when you reach for your horn, the music is so invisible and so deep inside of all of us that it's something that once you learn how to speak this language. So I'm gonna go to Walter, because like Elliot, his mother and father are both jazz musicians. And he also is, of all of us, he's like a people person. So in this period, I was thinking about Walter always talking to people, always speak a bunch of languages, is always like out there. And I'm always thinking, man, this has got to be hitting Walter hard. He's like our ambassador. And I want to speak to him first specifically about his sound, because he has a sound that's so touching and present. How has your sound changed in this time? And then I want to ask him, what things are you doing to help address the pandemic's effect on your sound and your creativity, Walter?
Yeah, you know, many times, you know, it's interesting how when we go through our searches in life for whatever it is that we're looking for, and in this case, looking for my sound, when you find whatever it is that you're looking for, you discover that it was always there. And so you know what I mean? I mean, I just, that's who I am, you know, and thank God that we all have that beauty. I think that's one of the most interesting things about jazz, is that in addition to the importance of teamwork and collectivity, is the ability to express yourself, as we're all different, saying in different ways. Individuality is also a part of that group effort. And I think, you know, my sound, like all those different things, like over the years, those long tones and exercises and things that we've been playing together, Wynton, when I've come over your house, you know, for your food, you know, and working on different things to develop being present and stopping and taking a moment to just be in the moment and accepting oneself for what it is, with the idea of improving, you know, even if we're not all perfect, but we are human. And that's that kind of human connection, I think, that is so special for us, particularly for me, considering this pandemic. You know, it's a real challenge sometimes, as all of us, you know, sometimes you feel like, man, I don't know what's going on. One day I'm hearing one thing, when are we going to open up again? When am I going to be able to perform? So some of the things that there's about 4 or 5 different things. Well, there's a lot of things, but I want to share with you just a few things that I find really helps me. The first and most important thing I've discovered recently is to wake up and just say, today is going to be a great day. It makes a big difference. Because sometimes, you know, I'm worried about the future and how to keep creative and how to keep looking forward. And sometimes, you know, you got all these thoughts. It might make me not sleep well or go through different periods where I'm worried about the future. But just with that simple vibration, today is going to be a great day. It's like setting off on the right foot, and it makes a big difference for me, as well as looking forward to like enjoying the moments during the day that bring me happiness, you know. And it could either be a simple or a profound thing. It doesn't even matter, you know, something like especially in New York, that we all are inside with the virus and quarantine. By the way, I've gone through quarantine since the end of January when we were in Shanghai, and then coming back to New York for a quarantine. It's just, you know, you can go stir crazy, but even just going in the park or sometimes just enjoying the sunlight in any way that I can, that's really healthy and safe and good for vitamin E. That's really important part of my thing. I definitely think exercise is an important aspect of combining our forces with this profound discipline of music, which is good for the body and soul and mind. And so I try to exercise, and that really helps too, you know, and no matter how short or long, just something that's kind of consistent, that helps keep my good feeling and energy flowing, and it helps my creativity too, you know. And so I've been doing a lot of writing, you know, things like that. It really helps me writing about stuff and just my thoughts, and reaching out to people is so important. And during this time, talking about being present, just reaching out to those people who support me and that I also support or may need my support is really important, because as we all know, we're so connected. And in the music, that's exactly what we do. That's why I miss playing with you guys so much, because, you know, every night that we go on the bandstand and play, it's a profound sense of a connectivity that is a good example for everything that goes way beyond the scope of music, you know. Individuality, coming together, sharing, you know, spontaneity, this music that's based on improvisation. All those things really help me to keep my creativity. And then one of the big challenges that really is interesting and I like a lot is that, so when I'm practicing by myself now, since we can't really play together in the room and hear the wonderful vibrations, it has really helped me in a way. Because it gives me a more sense of being creative on my own and independent, without necessarily relying on Carlos or Dan or, you know, the backgrounds of the orchestra or different things that we're doing when we're playing in different groups and stuff. So that really helps. And I hope that when we get back together too, that will help me to contribute more to our efforts. When we have our picnic, I can bring something to the table.
But I want to ask Kenny, because Kenny also is always looking for some positives, and it's such a struggle for musicians. You know, we all know, you're talking to your friends, man, there's no gigs. It's like, from a financial standpoint, people really are struggling. And you know, you also come from a musical family, and music, and this kind of music is a struggle. So are you seeing any positives from what has happened, or something that you see that can happen as a result of the times we're in now?
Yeah, actually I am. First of all, man, thank you for having us here like this, Wynton. And man, I got to say, it's so great to see everybody in the band. I miss you all so much. I miss hearing you. I miss playing with you. And it's great to hear you all speak so eloquently, man. You always, every one of you always inspires me so much. Walter, man, like, I mean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your words. Like, seriously, I've, you know, all of you. But, so, I'm sorry?
I said, we like it long as he's not turning around telling us we're not playing our part. Y'all hear that sounds?
But, I have found that actually quite a few positive things have happened to me during this time of COVID. I have a nonprofit organization that I created back home in Las Vegas for jazz education called Jazz Outreach Initiative. And we had to, at first I was really bummed out because we had to cancel a bunch of concerts. We just got our Las Vegas Youth Jazz Orchestra off the ground, had 6 rehearsals and had to cancel it. Had to cancel the kids' concerts. Like, man, we've been working for 3 years to get this off the ground. And my executive director said, you know what, this is gonna give us a chance to really strengthen our infrastructure. You know, and so we focused on that. We got bylaws passed. We're expanding our board. We're doing all kinds of things to make it so when we get out of this, we're going to be that much stronger. And in terms of like the Las Vegas Youth Jazz Orchestra, we figured out a way to actually record them. And so they've been doing recording sessions like we do with Lincoln Center Orchestra. And we're working on our 3rd one now. And it's given them an opportunity to be in the studio, even though it's with their cell phones, it's not being in a recording studio. It's given them an experience that they otherwise would not have had. So the first tune we did was Marcus Printup's arrangement of the Wayne Shorter tune, Armageddon. And we didn't choose that tune because of its meaning or title during these times. We chose that tune because it was the kids' favorite tune to play. They love playing that song. So we recorded the bass or the drums first, and then added the bass and the piano, and then the lead voices. And that gives everybody, you send that to all the kids with the lead voices, then they start to understand what it means to follow a lead player on another level than they would have if they're all sitting in a room with all kinds of distractions. So the kids have actually gotten better. We've done 3 recordings. We're working on a 3rd. We did that one. Then we did a Zoom table discussion, like a round table discussion with all the kids, and I brought in Marcus Printup. So we kind of, the kids got a chance to interact with Marcus, which was incredibly inspirational for these kids. And that's something that wouldn't have happened. Then we did Little Darling from the Count Basie Library, the Neil Hefti piece. And we did the same thing. And this time we brought in Scotty Barnhart, and he came and did a discussion with the kids. So they got to, you know, ask him questions. And that was super inspirational. And Scotty, in fact, we have this little 11-year-old trumpet player named Kai. He's been playing for 5 or 6 years already. Wynton knows him. Wynton gave him a lesson. This kid is the real deal.
He can play.
He can play at 11. And so he played the solo on Little Darling. So Scotty heard it and offered, said, next time the Count Basie Orchestra comes through Las Vegas, we want you to come up and play that solo with us. So it's creating an opportunity for a youngster like that to be able to actually, you know, get to play with the Count Basie Orchestra. Right now, the kids are working on, they're recording Victor Goines' The Business of America is Business, which is not an easy chart. I think we can all attest to that. That's some difficult music. These kids, they've been putting in their time, they're working on it, they're shedding it. They've been playing along with recording of Lincoln Center Orchestra to work on it. And then Victor Goines is going to come in and do a roundtable discussion with the kids on that. So these are opportunities these kids are getting that they would not have gotten if not for the COVID. And at the same time, the organization, we're getting more structure. We're breaking into committees to do different things. And I mean, it wasn't long ago, I was on the road with Wynton, and you said, you got your org chart together. And I was, what's an org chart? You know? And, you know, it's given me opportunities to help the organization grow and to do other positive things too. You know, a lot of you have mentioned missing each other's sounds, man. And I miss everybody's sound. And I want to let you all know I got a new horn, so I'm going to have a different sound when I come into the band.
Oh,
so
no.
I'm working on that too, and I'm excited about it. I'm real excited about it. So I remember one time.
I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait.
I'll just say one more quick thing is I remember one time being in the room at a Q&A that Wynton was doing. It was filled with probably like a couple thousand kids. And Wynton was addressing a situation and saying, you know, there's a positive and a negative side to everything in life. And Wynton said it's important to be aware of the negative, but focus on the positive. And that's a lesson that I share with kids all the time. I think is crucial, especially in these times, because there's so much that we can focus on that's not necessarily positive. And it's sometimes difficult to find the positive situation in anything that we do, especially when it's something really drastic, when there's something really difficult to deal with. But that's the time when it's important to really search for that positivity and embrace it, because it's there. It's there. And you know, if we all do that, we're going to come out on the other side stronger than we were before. You know, I look at what Carlos is doing. You know, he's really embraced the technology and recording. He's got a whole studio set up at home with birds in the background and everything. And I'm trying to do the same thing. I got my home rig set up and I'm recording from home, and we come out the other side of it, things are going to be a little bit different. And those who approach it from a positive point of view, I think are going to flourish. I hope so. And I think it's important for everybody, just for our spirits, to really focus on the positive. So that's, yeah.
Right. Well, one thing I want to tell Kai that we got a little trumpet player named Max in this too.
All right.
He's gonna be showing up on the bass on the basic gig with Scotty and them too now.
On the bass. He's not you just at the bass. He's gonna show up.
No bass. No bass. No bass.
No. Show up on the bass, Skain. That's gonna show up.
Randy Vogel just
might get a gig if he does that.
I meant to tell Walter something. I heard you on the radio today.
Oh, really?
That made me feel so good, man.
Wow, that's nice, man.
I'm not lying. And
you, man.
talking about sound, there was no mistaking who that was.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That was just, it was so great. That little connection with you just in the afternoons. I forgot to tell you.
Yeah, man.
I got to give a quick shout out. My mom is here. I want to say hi to my mom.
Hey, Mom.
Hey, Mom.
Mama Ramp.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah.
All right. I want to go back with something on the line of what Ted is saying, because we all hear each other play all the time. We all have moments that we can remember hearing each other play, like that "Baby It's Cold Outside" solo that you played in front of your daddy in the Hollywood Bowl. That Ted played. And I want to say that in general, the last solo at the end of the night is almost always Elliot. And then when Elliot starts to play, somebody
Have we figured out why that is?
Why is that?
Because look, I don't want to take that personally. Like, is it a trombone 3 thing, or is it personal? Let's talk about this right now.
I don't know
It's nature of the instrument, man. Nature of the instrument.
I don't know
Nature of the instrument.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But when you start playing, people look around and say, "Oh yeah, him," and you start playing all kind of horn, and they say, "Damn, this guy can play." So we've been sitting up here all night, and he's been sitting there and has not played. So, but whenever we get to that last solo, that last person, we always are kind of like, okay. And one thing before we open it up for questions, I want to just tell people about the thing that I love the most about the band is that because you're only going to play one time a solo, maybe you play twice. Sometimes you don't play at all. So, I mean, sometimes if the set list is not right, but I love how over time, we start to figure out who has played and who has not played. So when you get 2 or 3 songs from the end, Chris is turning around, Carlos, we look at each other, we try to figure out how to make it possible for someone else to play. And I think that, along with everybody writing their own arrangements, created the greatest change in the band, the kind of collectivity and sharing that makes our rehearsals so interesting too, because we keep that same disrespect for each other. But now we get to disrespect each other's music because we did the arrangement. So I want to thank all my beautiful members for being on, and I'm gonna open it up for questions. And based on the question, we'll throw it to different members.
Hey, Vic's on the call too. I see him.
Oh, Vic's there?
Yeah, he's in there.
He's
driving.
Well, before I open up, let me see what Vic is talking about.
I think he's driving.
Yeah, what's up, man? How y'all doing? It's good
Hey,
to see
Vic.
you.
What's up, Vic?
All right.
Be careful, man. Be careful.
I'm not gonna look at the screen, but I've been checking y'all out.
You driving? Where you going?
I'm going to New Orleans, man. It's like the pandemic makes you remember what's important to you.
Right.
So I've been up since 6 o'clock this morning driving to New Orleans. I'm an hour away. And, relating that to the band, it makes you remember what's important to you after 26 years of being with the JLCO. We took being on the road, not for granted, but as a thing that we do all the time. But not being on the road will give us a greater appreciation. It's going to be like an awakening for when we come back out there. It's an awakening for the world about the things we've been sleeping on. We've been, living off the fat of the land, so to speak. But now that fat has gone away. So now we have to come back and rebuild, but we can appreciate what we had so we can move forward and get to what we want to have.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, you're right.
All right, keep your eye on the road, man. We don't want to get accused of nothing. What questions we have?
All right, let's get to it. We've got a long list. We'll try to get to as many as we can. And I'll remind everybody just to raise your hand in the participants tab if you have a question you'd like to ask. This first one is coming from Skylar Mendel. Skylar, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question. It's really an honor to be speaking with all of you. My question is sort of two parts. It's about listening, and part number one is, what's your favorite way to listen to music, whether it's like a certain format of recording, or with a friend, or in the dark, or any of that, just out of curiosity. And then number two, as you're listening to music, how are you forming opinions about what you're listening to, and how are you getting rid of those? Like, for example, I'll be listening to something and my friend will say like, oh man, Lee Morgan, he sounds really angry on his like solo break on Blue Train. And then I can't hear anything else except that. So how are you forming your own opinions about what you're listening to?
Format of listening, who has the most kind of,
Chris.
I don't know who,
Chris?
Chris? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ears of God.
I don't know about
Chris.
all that. Years of God.
What about your format that you listen to? Because you got super supreme ears.
Well, actually, something that Elliot actually hit me to, was listening to high resolution files. We all got caught up in this MP3 type of thing when it came out in the early 2000s. It was like, yeah, we get the music, yeah, we get it quick, and but it sounds like garbage because a lot of information is lost on this. So like wave files and vinyl and all of that. If you could, find the most, most high res that you can get, and you can hear everything and get a sense of how deep or how, deep the symbol is, or just how much breath is in the tone of somebody's voice or somebody's instrument. So that's a format that I'd like to try and listen to it most of all the times. I've pretty much gotten rid of most of my MP3s. And in terms of what to listen for, I was kind of in that same boat where it's like something would always catch me and I'd always listen to that. But then, playing on the bandstand or playing with my dad when he was, I know right now he's missing playing and singing with our group back at home, the Echoes of Joy. I know he's missing that like crazy. But, just being up on the bandstand and playing with him, you get to hear not just yourself, but you have to listen to everything. So it's like you have to listen to the bass, you got to listen to the drums, you got to listen to the guitar, you got to listen to the background singers, you got to listen to the lead singer, which my dad is for the most part. He's leading, and so I have to catch his cues and everything. So it's like you have to turn your ears, and it's just like playing a sport, like playing basketball. It's like the play is never over. It's like the moment is never over until it is over. And so it's like you're constantly listening for one thing and constantly going to another. It's like on the bandstand, for instance, with the JLCO, it's like I'm constantly listening for the bass, drums, and then the piano. And then it's like there's certain things that Ryan Kaiser might do, our lead, that we have to pay attention to. Sometimes we have to do some cross-section things. We might be playing with another person that's not normally the lead, but they're always capable. Everybody up there is capable of doing that part. So it's like you always have to just, listen, not just for what they're playing, but how they're playing it. There's always a certain thing, and they might change it. And that's the good thing about jazz. Everything is human. So things may change. It not necessarily drastically, but like a little thing like here and there that might change, that you might have to catch on to and latch on to. And it's that feeling that we miss right now that you could get to, in terms of that listening. You try to focus on one thing and then try to focus on two things. Like just listen to just the bass, or listen to just the bass and the drums, or just listen to Cool Strutting. Listen to that whole record. You listen to the rhythm section of that whole record. Cool Strutting by Sonny Clark. Just listen to the hookups that Philly Joe, Sonny Clark, and Paul Chambers had. Just listen to that the whole entire time. Forget about Jackie McLean and Art Farmer. Just listen to the rhythm section and just feel the vibe that they get on, man.
So I wanna go to the second part of the question: is how do you form opinions about what you're listening to, and how do you evaluate what you're listening to while you're listening to it? So I guess I'll ask Camille.
Well, it's always great to listen to as many if you're studying a particular tune, listen to as many versions as possible. That's how you're going to come up with your opinions, what you like, what you don't like. You'll hear differences as far as approach. Like I'll never forget the first time I heard Tune Up, and I heard Sonny Rollins' version of it, and then I heard Miles Davis's version of it, and it was just like, whoa, this is night and day. And the proximity of when they were recorded, super close, but these people had two completely different concepts in approaching the song. All right, let me check out another version. And then from there, you're able to gain information and insight to what the possibilities are, maybe what some people took as a chance, maybe what they didn't take as a chance, what you would have taken as a chance, all those great things. But I would just say start with something that you like and listen to as many renditions of it as you can and start going back and forth between the recordings.
So I wanna ask Elliot another addendum to that question, because he was saying somebody will tell him Lee Morgan is playing this way or so-and-so is listening that way, and you were saying you're listening emotionally to music a certain way. How do you, if somebody tells you something about music or you've been led to think music is a certain way, how do you, after years of listening, listen to something fresh or new with a new type of ear?
Well, for me, I'm not trying to analyze it while I'm listening to it. Like that for me takes the fun out of it. I just like to listen to it and enjoy it, and then almost get in another gear if I want to try and understand it. But I'm not putting music on to try and understand it. I'm putting music on to enjoy it, and to, you know, especially if it's something, the kind of people that we're all talking about right now, that can change the way you feel. You could be down that day and you put something like that on and that changes the way you feel. But if I'm trying to think all the time about someone's sound, or about they split this note, or what was that harmony wise, or then I'm actually, it's something that we try and not do when we're playing on the other end of it, because if, you know, there's so much going on, you just want to almost have that free mind and not analyzing and trying to figure out, well, no, this isn't a good solo. If you start thinking that while you're playing, then you're already going down that track. So it's trying to maybe just enjoy the moment. And then there's maybe times that you can bring that into your practice if you really want to analyze it and understand it. But that's only to help you hear it. So when you're actually on the gig, you're not thinking, once again, you're just more in the moment and be able to hear it.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for your question, Skylar.
Thank you.
All right. Next question's coming from Joshua Polion. Josh, you there? Hey, Josh. Hey, we can't hear you. I don't know if your microphone's working. No, nothing yet. I can come back to you. I'll give you a minute.
Type it.
All right. Let's go to Caden Green. Hey, Caden.
Hi. Mr. Marsalis and the whole orchestra, I think I'd heard in this kind of early stages of the pandemic that you had said that one of the things that you wanted to focus on really was training your ear. And so I've been able to put a lot of time into transcribing and kind of working with singing with the tune, singing without it, and then putting it on the piano. Like I'm working on a lot of Bird right now. And I was wondering what other types of ear training or working on your ear exercises or techniques, or even just listening, maybe how to improve my ear.
Well, I think I'm gonna throw that over to Ted Nash. He has great ears. He not only can hear stuff, he's an unbelievable reader and great musician, but he also can hear into the intention of other type of styles. So Ted, what can you?
Well, I just was remembering a time that we had some time backstage, and it was Carlos and Dan, and you guys were going to the piano and saying, all right, you know, this is a C. Now what's the next note? What's the next note? What's the next note?
Yeah, that was a good one.
Remember that?
We did that on the tour
Did it on the bus too.
Yeah.
Little Casio, yeah.
We did that for hours. And it was interesting because I think we get used to hearing, it's not about having perfect pitch and saying it's a C, it's about the relationship of the notes. So we hear it in a context of a chord, or it's a dominant chord and it's a flat 9 and that's the 13, and that's you start to identify the extensions. And I think it's what we did was such great. We were just kind of goofing around, but it was such great practice for really getting your ears in tune. And when we're playing on the bandstand, we want to be able to react. Oh, is that a 13? Is that a flat 13? Is that a sharp 13?
Yeah.
There's only 5 altars. Go ahead.
Oh,
6, 7, 8.
6, 7, 8.
I did. Besides, the singing and then trying to play, what do you play, Caden?
I play the piano.
Yeah.
He said, yeah.
It's a great thing that someone said, take a pencil with an eraser and you go, and then you say that's a 6th, right? Or that's a major 7. So you have to identify the intervals immediately, right? So you try to develop, because intervals are really important and helps put context into things. And so you just hit the C and then you just hit randomly a note and see how fast you can identify the intervals. It's kind of a fun little game. But you can get other people to do stuff for you, play something. Like have a piano player. I mean, it's hard now, but online you could do that. Have them play a voicing. Boom. Now you just try to hit it.
Boom.
Boom.
Wow.
We had so much fun with that exercise backstage.
Yeah, who started that? Was that Nimmer?
I think so.
I think it was
Nimmer, that was you, right?
He taking credit for it if he did.
Yeah, you started.
But make things fun too. A lot of times we say, it's work, man, I got to practice, it's work. But you can make games out of it and have a lot of fun and you can be learning in the meantime.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Katie.
I want to add to that too. I think the more variety of music that you listen to too, the more different kind of soloists you listen to, you're going to have a broader spectrum of things that you can draw from harmonically. You can see how McCoy plays on a tune versus how Chick plays on a tune versus how Barry Harris, Bud Powell. You're just going to hear different harmonic approaches just by listening to different people. So that's another approach too.
All right. So Josh just wrote to me his question, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. He said, my question is about Mr. Marsalis' book, Letters to a Young Jazz Musician. He talks about breaking the rules by creating more form. I wanted to know more about this and how to be rebellious by creating more form instead of losing form. Thank you.
Well, that's a good question. I think I'm going to answer just and not take a long time. We have a vision of what the future is. And that future is some computers, some robots, people going to Mars, some shiny silver object that goes somewhere, robots doing everything being mechanized and more technological, things being more what we call out, things being more abstracted. That's our concept. Now, what if the actual new thing is not that at all? Everybody thinks that's what it is. So when they see it, what if the new thing is more collective creativity, more humanity, a deeper level of engagement with your neighbor, skills that have nothing to do with giving power over to robots? So when I said that about form, the whole question of being a rebel means that you break a convention. So if you have a convention that is what is called avant-garde, and now it's just a term, to break that convention means you're not avant-garde. So your relationship with all these terms is always, what are you in relation to what everybody else is? If everyone is the word liberal and you're not, they're all conservatives. If you're the word conservative, in terms of the word liberal, it means in terms of the word conservative, a conservative thing is the easiest path, or a thing that everybody is. I mean it in that sense, because there are many uses of the word conservative. In other words, when you have the comfort of the status quo, is when you're doing something everybody else is doing. So you want to be in that status quo, just, well, what did avant-garde people doing? I'm going to do this. Now, when you don't want that umbrella, that's when you're actually out on that ledge. So that's what I meant. And what I meant by form is unlimited. And of everybody is on here writes a lot of different forms. I think I want to get to some people who haven't talked. So I'm going to get to Carlos, because he writes music. I could pick anybody here has done interesting things with form, but Carlos writes interesting forms that puts a lot of different grooves together. So he writes music that can be traditional, it cannot be traditional. He puts a lot of different elements in his music. So he exemplifies kind of what I'm talking about. So I'll just ask him in his piece, in the new piece that you wrote with Moses on the cross and those pieces in it, what was your concept of form on in that suite of pieces? Carlos.
Well, you guys hear me? The form is, I know it's internet probably. Can you see me now?
Yeah.
How about now?
No.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
Form to me, the way I visualize form is more of an event in my life. You know, when I write music, and I try to perceive a certain section of my life, I use form as a plot or a scenery or something that has happened in my life. And I don't judge it by a certain even number of bars or whatever. I just let sound dictate what I feel to that specific situation in my life. Moses on the Cross was just a song that just talks about Robert Moses, expansion project through the South Bronx, breaking up, families and stuff like that. And what I utilize, and I'm a lover for the blues, the whole Duke Ellington concept of the blues is powerful, that those 12 bars, those 24 bars are very powerful. I tend to try to continue that legacy, even through Latin music, because I feel that there's some type of spiritual connection with the 1-4-5. I know we have it, there's an even amount of bars, but that 1-4-5 is very spiritual. And, when I write forms, I try to follow these spiritual guidance and sounds. And that's how I usually, build up form.
Right. I think it's important too to go with kind of what Ted was saying, because form is also a matter of play. You're putting things in a context. We live in chaos. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Our next question is coming from Ivan Smith. Ivan, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay. I'm curious about what do you guys, when you're playing, what do you see? I'm a visual artist, and I'm working on a piece now where it's Thelonious Monk, and I know people can't hear anything when they're looking at it, but I'd like to convey what he sounds like. So I've been thinking a lot about that, and I'm wondering, what do you see when you're playing as opposed to what you hear?
Well, I think I want to see if Elliot, Paul, and Kenny, we all wrote pieces for Crystal Bridges that was based on some type of artwork. So I think you all have not talked. So I don't want to run out of time without y'all getting a chance. So maybe if Paul and Kenny can go first, and then Elliot can hold the caboose up.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. Paul. I'm sorry, Paul, Kenny, and Walter. My fault.
So in terms of seeing stuff, I mean, we based it on the artwork, right? But honestly, when I'm playing, I guess I always think of intent, I guess, and just more of a feeling behind it rather than just I don't really see like a picture or anything like when I'm playing. Some people have synesthesia and they really see the colors swirl. Sometimes I'm jealous of that. I feel like it would make it easier. But just the feeling that comes into me, that was a really big awakening when. I mean, Wynton, you talk about that all the time, right? Really getting into that intent of whatever the composer or the artist is really thinking about. That seems like the easiest way for me to actually try to get into some meaning into whatever I'm playing, if it's writing or playing or anything like that. So I guess it's less technical in terms of a picture so much as what that feeling evokes in me. And then how can I represent that with what I'm doing? But go ahead.
For me, I don't really visualize pictures or colors when I play. I know some people do. For me, I visualize it as like a scope or a shape of telling a story when I play. Now, the opposite, like when we wrote pieces based on art, I actually hear music when I look at art. Like the piece that I wrote about, it provoked a feeling in me. And, it brought me to a certain place where I actually studied music that came from that place and wrote music based on the piece of art that I was looking at. And I go to museums and I'll go, I love surreal sections. Salvador Dali is one of my favorites. It inspires music in me. But when I play, I'm not necessarily visualizing art that way or colors. I know there's a young trumpet player, I think I just read about him, he's going to be coming to Juilliard next year, who sees colors in music. He's very visual in the way that he plays. I look forward to meeting him. But in terms of myself, I don't really see it that way. It's a different thing. It's more about the feeling, and I think of improvising as spontaneous composition and creating different soundscapes that I can build on and create an overall arc and tell a story with.
Walter?
Yeah, I understand what you mean, Kenny. I kind of feel very similar. The only time I've actually seen something while playing that has affected what I'm playing is playing with dancers. We've also done another portraits concert where we actually played while they had slides of different artists, so we could watch the artwork while we're playing. When we did Crystal Bridges, I did it the other way around. It's not like I actually saw colors or paintings or shapes or anything like that necessarily when I was playing, but instead I took the shapes and the painting of Romare Beard and Sacrifice and used that to interpret it my own way of expressing what I thought the emotions were. So I think I would say I feel more the emotions that I'm sure we could probably interpret in different ways through arts. But one thing I definitely appreciate, because of your question, is so nice in the sense that whenever we combine different arts together, it always creates something very magical.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for your question, Ivan. All right, we're running out of time, but I think we've got time for one more. And this last question is going to come from Esteban Otero. Esteban, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
All right. Hello, Mr. Marsalis and the rest of the orchestra.
Hey, now.
Hey, so I was wondering, so how many of you guys have perfect pitch? And secondly, well, what's a good way to get better at theory? Because my theory's not great, but I have a really good sense of time and perfect pitch, and I improvise pretty well. But I really need to get better at theory because I'm not great with chords where they are. I just need a better understanding. So what's a good place to start?
Okay, let's first, who's the Perfect Pitch Club? Chris, Marcus,
Elliot. Vincent.
I think Ted has it.
Camille.
I don't.
Ted has a real good relative.
Well, Skain, you don't got it? Skain, you don't have it?
No.
You're not lying to us, right?
No, my brothers be laughing at me, man. No.
I got perfectly bad pitch.
A horrible pitch.
Who else? We got more. I know we had 5 or 6. Who else?
I think Ryan has it.
Brenham.
No, he said it. Ryan has it.
So
I think Dave Robinson has it too.
Who might have it?
Christy has it.
Christy has it. Christy.
Yeah.
Christy, yeah.
Right,
Yes,
a librarian. Yeah. Okay, in terms of theory, I think the first I must say get you a book of Johann Sebastian Bach chorales.
1 and 2.
And learn how to analyze those chorales. That's Western harmony. Now, when you want to learn about jazz harmony, get the music of Thelonious Monk. And his songs are a distillation of Duke Ellington's music and Jelly Roll Morton. Now, all of us have different things that we could tell you. Lydian chromatic concept. There's so many theories of music that are great. Now, I'm gonna give you another name of a book. There's an unbelievable book of actual harmony that you can just carry around and read. It's called Structural Functions of Harmony, Arnold Schoenberg. That is a book that's very simple. And the interesting thing about that book is when he describes where the altered tones come from, it's coming directly from a kind of Bach harmony. But you're going to notice the notes that he identifies through the minor mode and the major mode are going to be the flat 9, the raised 9, the flat 5, the flat 13, and the major 7 on the dominant 7 or the dominant 7 on the major 7. It's going to be the same notes that we use in jazz. So that's what but I'm sure other people have other concepts. And Duke Ellington, that's advanced harmony. Call Chris Crenshaw. He knows all the Duke's chords. Anybody else want to just say about harmony from a theoretical standpoint? No?
I'll throw in something. To jump on what you were saying with strengthening your ears, transcribe as much as you can. And then once you transcribe, sit down and really try to work measure by measure, understanding the relationship of what's happening at that moment in time with what that chord is. Start with the blues. I love Train Slow Blues because he has this idea that he builds like 5-10 choruses off of that. It's just beautiful to witness, to see how he grows and creates this beautiful story with just a simple idea. But at the same time, he's doing certain harmonic things that you can see, like reading a book just from looking at the chords because it's a blues. Also, I love George Coleman because when he plays, it's like reading an open book. And when you transcribe it and you parallel it to the chords or harmony, like take, for instance, when he plays on Ciora, it's very understandable. There's several ways of looking and listening to harmony. I know because when you have perfect pitch, there's target practice where, okay, that's a C, okay, that's a D. But then there's like the shape where you got to get used to understanding, okay, that color is a C minor 7, C minor major 7. Okay, that sound has a flat 9 in there somehow. So try to sit in front of a piano, and this is important, see if you can voice out one by one the voicing, and close your eyes and see if by each note that you play within the voicing, you can hear and see the distance between each interval and the difference between how does this color become darker when I flatten it? How does this color become a little brighter when I sharpen it? And then of course, learn tunes, because you'll realize all tunes, they ultimately have pretty much, most of the popular tunes have the same formula. And it's just a matter of understanding that roadmap sonically of what creates a structure of a good tune. And then from there, being able to hear and see those shapes so that when you recognize those shapes, you can go to playing them because you already are familiar with that sound and color.
Great. Okay, I'm gonna leave you with one other thought to go with what Camille is telling you about harmony. Okay, the first is to understand harmony from a modal standpoint. Okay, modes and how they work. A mode, one mode Dorian goes to another Dorian. Phrygian goes to another Phrygian. One major chord can go to another major chord. It's the way Art Tatum plays a lot of progressions. Minor, 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 dominant. Try to understand the internal way that voices move. Because harmony is vertical and it's horizontal. It's like human beings in a relationship. You have your relationship with yourself in space, then it's me and Dan, me and Ted, me and Victor, Victor and Chris, Carlos, and we start to get all these relationships that at one moment they're the most significant thing, and the next moment they're not significant at all. This is the root of the chord. Then the next time it's the major 7 on a dominant 7 chord. Then the very next chord is the minor 3rd on a major chord. You know, so harmony is such an intricate and detailed and natural way, like the way a group of people just form a circle naturally. How many times we've been standing backstage and we just fall into a circle? That's harmony. So get the modal understanding, understand the philosophy of harmony, which is things that change relationships all the time. And that there's no hierarchy of relationship, but they do progress in a certain way that implies a hierarchy. And that it's endless fun, and it's like math. It's a huge cycle. It's like the universe. It's like the heavens and the stars. It is a huge, unbelievable cycle that can be figured out mathematically in millions and millions and millions of ways. There's no one way to understand it. So I'm sorry if I went on too long in the end, but I love my members, my brothers and my sister. I love them so much. It feels so good to be able to say it and look at people and not have any hint of anything that's not real. And the depth of that love is very difficult to explain. It's been played out on bandstands and recording studios and parks, prisons everywhere in the world for years. And they're so for real about playing, rehearsing, doing stuff and handling their business. I'm so proud and have such a depth of love for each of them that I thank the Lord for giving me the opportunity to be on this earth and play with them for the amount of time I've played with them. So thank y'all very, very much for joining us tonight. All of y'all here on the domain. Chloe and Adam, thank y'all. I know Adam is gonna close us out. I'm not gonna say anything else after this. I will see y'all next week, and I will be on the phone with y'all on Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
man.
you so much.
Yeah, brother.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank
Love
you.
it.
Great.
Get it out of your mind for me.
Yeah, you're right.
I'd just like to offer a big thank you to everyone for being a part of this community. Jazz at Lincoln Center is a nonprofit organization in New York City committed to entertaining, enriching, and expanding a global community for jazz. If it's within your means, please consider making a donation. With that, I'd just like to say thanks to Wynton and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra for your time this evening and your insights. And we'll see you guys next Monday at 9 p.m. Take care. Thanks so much.
Take care.
All right.
Y'all.
Yeah. Later, everyone.
Yes,
Thank you
indeed.
all.
All right, everybody.
Right.
Much love, y'all.
Love
to you,
y'all.
Yeah, man.
Hasta luego, papi.